The German Ninth Army found itself in an increasingly desperate situation during the opening phase of the Battle of Berlin. On April 16, 1945, three powerful Soviet fronts launched a massive assault across the Oder-Neisse line east of Berlin. By April 20th, Soviet forces had pierced German defences in two places. Moving rapidly, Soviet armoured and infantry units began to surround the beleaguered capital. The main Soviet breakthrough occurred north of the town of Kustrin on the Oder's west bank, and an ever-widening gap grew between the Ninth Army and the nearby 4th Panzer Army. Within just 2 days, the Red Army controlled the area south of Frankfurt an der Oder. Under General Theodor Busse, the Ninth Army was being pushed back towards southern Berlin. Hitler's hold-fast order exposed the Ninth Army to complete encirclement. Ignoring this directive, Colonel General Gotthard Heinrici, who commanded Army Group Vistula, which included both the Ninth Army and the 4th Panzer Army, ordered Busse to withdraw westward. But by then, it was too late. To the north of Berlin, the only substantial German defence was SS Obergruppenführer Felix Steiner's 3rd SS Panzer Corps, itself badly understrength, exhausted, and worn down by months of brutal fighting. By the afternoon of April 20th, Hitler's final birthday, Soviet tanks had reached the outskirts of Berlin. That same day, Hitler appeared in public for the last time, slowly climbing the steps from his bunker to decorate Hitler Youth soldiers in the Reich Chancellery garden and receive birthday greetings from his remaining lieutenants before retreating once more to his underground headquarters. His focus now became the relief of Berlin. This was urgent. By the morning of April 21st, central Berlin was already under long-range Soviet artillery fire. Studying his situation map inside the bunker, Hitler ordered Steiner to launch a counterattack from the northeast of the city. At the same time, Busse's Ninth Army to the south was instructed to reorganize, establish a defensive line from Königs Wusterhausen to Cottbus, and then attack Marshal Konev's armoured spearheads, cutting them off and destroying them. On paper, these German armies looked formidable. In reality, they were crippled by shortages of supplies, ammunition, tanks, and above all, experienced soldiers. Many divisions had been bled white by constant combat, their ranks filled with boys' convalescents, Luftwaffe ground crews, and the shattered remnants of other units. Steiner reported that his forces were far too weak to launch any meaningful attack against such overwhelming Soviet strength, but Hitler ignored him. Heinrici also warned that the Ninth Army needed to withdraw immediately or risk total destruction. He explained that strong Soviet forces now stood between the Ninth Army and Berlin, making any relief attempt impossible. The only hope was to retreat westward, but once again, Hitler refused to listen. On April 22nd, during an afternoon situation conference in the bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery, Hitler suffered what amounted to a nervous breakdown when informed that Steiner had not attacked. In an effort to raise his spirits, Colonel General Alfred Jodl, the Wehrmacht Chief of Staff, suggested that General Walther Wenck's 12th Army, then facing the Americans on the Elbe River west of Berlin, could turn around and attempt to relieve the Ninth Army. Together they might then push on to save the capital. In my recent video on Wenck's failed attempts to reach the Ninth Army, linked in the end screen, I explained how Wenck disregarded Hitler's hopeless order and instead tried to open an escape corridor through Soviet lines, allowing the trapped Ninth Army to reach the 12th Army's positions and then move west to surrender to the Americans along the Elbe. From the Ninth Army's perspective, breaking out westward was their only real chance to avoid Soviet captivity. To this end, Busse ordered the formation of battle groups to punch through Soviet lines. At this time, the Ninth Army numbered around 80,000 men from four main formations: the 11th SS Panzer Corps, the 5th SS Mountain Corps, the 5th Corps, and the Frankfurt an der Oder garrison. Only 79 tanks remained operational, the strongest of which were within the 11th SS Panzer Corps, fielding about 36 tanks, including 14 formidable Tiger IIs of the 502nd Heavy SS Panzer Battalion. Opposing them were some 280,000 Soviet troops, supported by 280 tanks and self-propelled guns, along with overwhelming artillery and air support. The Ninth Army faced a grim choice: be annihilated in place or attempt a breakout toward the Americans. Busse chose the latter, hoping to spare his men from Soviet captivity. General Wenck's 12th Army began its attack on April 25th, managing to push forward to the town of Bielitz and hold positions near Potsdam. Busse, however, faced a dire situation. His rear guard was constantly engaged, forcing the Ninth Army to fight both front and rear as it inched westward. The army was critically short on food and, crucially, fuel for its remaining vehicles. Busse planned to use his last tanks to strike Marshal Konev's forces attacking Berlin. His artillery had ammunition for only one final barrage, after which the guns would be spiked. The Ninth Army held positions amid lakes and gloomy pine forests southwest of Fürstenwalde, encircled by both Konev's 1st Ukrainian Front and Marshal Zhukov's 1st Belarusian Front. The only viable escape route lay across the Berlin-Dresden Autobahn, south of the lakes near Töpitz. On April 25th, Konev rushed reinforcements to block this obvious route, occupying the forests. But the Soviet lines were stretched thin, and a gap existed near the town of Baruth. The first breakout attempt was coordinated with the 12th Army's offensive on the evening of April 25th. Two battle groups, Kampfgruppe von Luck, consisting of the shattered remnants of the 21st Panzer Division, with a handful of Panthers, Panzerfafis and half-tracks, and Kampfgruppe Pipkorn, formed around the 35th SS and Police Grenadier Division, advanced toward Baruth. Part of this force broke through the gap between two Soviet armies, crossed Reichsstrasse 96 and reached the Baruth-Zossen Road, a key Soviet supply route feeding their assault on Berlin. The Soviet 50th and 96th Guards Rifle Divisions counterattacked fiercely. When Luftwaffe reconnaissance spotted German units crossing the Autobahn, the news was relayed to Hitler's bunker. Furious that Busse was disobeying orders by heading west instead of toward Berlin, Hitler sent frantic messages demanding he change course. Busse ignored them. On April 27th, the Ninth Army resumed its assault along two routes, one from Töpitz in the north, another toward Baruth in the south. The northern attack smashed into the Soviet 54th Guards Rifle Division, using its remaining heavy tanks to seize the town of Ziesen, even encircling parts of the 161st Rifle Regiment. In the south, another German force surrounded elements of the 291st Guards Rifle Regiment in Rheinland. Bitter street fighting followed until Soviet reinforcements broke through. Casualties were horrendous. Meanwhile, elements of the first breakout group that had crossed the Autobahn on April 26th reached the forests near Kummersdorf, designated as the main rendezvous point for escaping Ninth Army survivors. On the night of April 28th, another strong push was made to escape the Halbe area. A Kampfgruppe broke through Soviet lines of the 50th Guards Rifle Division, but fresh Red Army reinforcements quickly sealed the breaches. Soviet artillery and aircraft pounded the Germans mercilessly. Despite exhaustion, confusion, and dwindling ammunition, the remnants of the Ninth Army fought on, terrified of capture. Between April 28th and 29th, savage fighting raged in and around Halbe as the Soviets sought to annihilate the encircled Germans. The cost was staggering. Around 30,000 Ninth Army soldiers were killed, along with perhaps 10,000 civilians. Over 20,000 Soviet troops also died in the carnage. By April 29th, most of the Ninth Army's panzers had been destroyed or abandoned due to lack of fuel. Forest roads were littered with burnt-out tanks, shattered trucks, and the bodies of soldiers and civilians alike. Yet against all odds, the German vanguard managed to link up with the 12th Army, still clinging to its positions at Belitz. Over the following days, some 25,000 soldiers from the 9th Army, along with several thousand civilians, made it into the 12th Army's sector and retreated west to the Elbe River, where they surrendered to the Americans. Among them was General Theodor Busse. He was released from captivity in 1948, later becoming West Germany's Director of Civil Defense and writing several military history books. He died in 1986, aged 88. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share.